one of the last questions we've got would be, in terms of, we've covered some of it, but how would you create a best-in-class signage system? We've covered some of these things, but best-in-class signage system.
Well, one of the things,
not money, no object, but
yeah.
what's the fundamental stuff?
I mean, one of the things that I'm always talking to potential customers about is that, and you know, we're about putting in an infrastructure in terms of managing and delivering content. And I keep evangelizing about thinking about the infrastructure investment as not only to satisfy your needs today, but have the margin and the ability to fulfill the needs of tomorrow.
Right.
Because as the sales and marketing demands increase, then you know the system's going to be required to fulfill that. So rather than tear it all up and reinvest, make sure that the infrastructure is built to grow, because we clearly said the opportunity is to do much more, but we're not fulfilling that yet. So an infrastructure is a big investment. And I always talk about the quality, because obviously coming from the broadcast background, we look at very high quality display because of that impact. And people are used to having the high quality now in their homes. They have they have their high definition sets, so you cannot deliver anything less than the same kind of quality that you can get as a consumer in your home. So
it'd be the same with music, I guess.
Deliver that quality.
Yeah. I think to deliver best in class, if you've got clear objectives and it's meeting those objectives, that's your best in class.
Right.
I think that's.
It doesn't necessarily mean expensive either.
No, but take it seriously.
Yeah.
Invest for the future. I mean, I think some of the things we've touched on today would be that we don't know what all the things are coming up. We're just, so you said we're scratching the surface in some of the stuff that can be done.
Yeah. And what we're doing with some of our campaign management tools is looking at because as systems become more complex, but at the same time you don't want it operationally to be very expensive. Right. You want to be able to implement campaigns simply at low cost without a lot of intensive work from people or process. So we're looking at that as well in terms of making sure that the tools that enable you to deliver the content are doing all the heavy lifting. Yeah. And makes it nice and easy from an operational standpoint. And
things like accountability. I mean, that's in your digital cinema world, it's a big thing, isn't it? You have that fantastic statistic of how many hours of digital projection you've done with downtime. It's in a minute or something, isn't it? It's hundreds of thousands of hours.
It's 5 nines now.
Is it? Yeah. So it's the accountability. I mean, as the screens become more important, if the screen in the New Look store in Dublin, you don't want it to be off.
Not at all.
So
not at all.
And the retailer runs not 24/7 quite, but pretty much so in some of these places these days. So the measurement and the accountability.
The measurement, the metrics, accountability.
It's all broadcast. What you're saying is it's broadcast.
It's all it's absolutely part of our ethos of being here, because again if it as we all are aspiring to, it becomes a mainstream must-have media as part of a campaign, then quite rightly the brands expect it to be delivered and get the assurance of delivery as they would in other media delivery.
Is there a sorry?
No, I agree. I would say a level of compliance I think is required. Particularly on paid for advertising.
Right.
Yeah. I want to come back to best in class for a second. I think the best in class challenge is more difficult than it's ever been, because to be best in class you have to actually think 2 years ahead. What's best in class now for my client? Because we have to have practical installations in the real world.
Absolutely.
But you have to think about it and explain to your client what it's going to be in 2 years. So, for example, I've talked before about shape. Shape's really important because a display can go where it could never go before. You don't have to find a place on a wall where an 80-inch display can go. You can fit an odd-shaped display where the people go.
Right.
Displays. We talked about size earlier, but size in a sports arena is different than size in a museum. So in a sports arena, you're trying to appeal to an audience of thousands of people. In a museum, you're interacting in an immersive way with maybe 10 people at a time, up close and personal. So these are all challenges that people need to address for best in class, because there's so many more options out there now than we ever had before.
More things to think about.
Yeah. Then there's interactivity, responsiveness, and so on.
In terms of and the technology, what in terms of the changes going forward, you said that we should be looking for what customers would need in a couple of years' time. I mean, it's hard enough to predict the technology stuff, but what have we got now that's supporting best in class, and what will we have, you think, going forward that would make it even better?
Well, we certainly the dramatic reductions in size, in cost rather, of LCD displays allow larger displays to be placed in interesting ways, and just like Moore's law applies to computers, Moore's law or something like it applies to displays, not just LCDs, but to microtiles, to LEDs, to all sorts of displays. So we need to think for our clients what their cost structure is going to be to make the capital investments a few years down the road, what the cost structures are for the content that we've already discussed before, and we're seeing just many, many more choices. So for large area displays, there's LEDs, there's the new Mitsubishi 3mm OLEDs, there's of course microtiles, there's Prism, there's all sorts of choices that are now.
So they all need to be thought about. And because the internet and the 3G are making a big impact on how we roll out systems, I guess. In the old days you probably relied on satellite wholly, I would have thought, for the music distribution, but now it's...
In the main, yeah. And tape.
And tape.
That old
None of us are old
technology.
enough to remember the tape.
But yeah, absolutely, 3G's got a big part to play.
Yeah.
We're already using that on digital signage.
So everything being connected, I guess, and that's...
Yeah, much is made of the connected world in all sorts of contexts, and that's what it is. I mean, so you know, we're trying to look to see how you develop the infrastructure to be able to address individual displays, whatever they may be, because we know the attributes of that, but and where they are, and what the context of that is, and what can be shown and what can't be shown, rules, business rules, because ultimately we need to be getting to a point where a major brand like Coca-Cola can do a pan-European campaign easily on a digital out-of-home, and we've got hundreds of networks that exist. How do we actually get to that point? That's going to be a real measure from a brand reach point of view, whether we can enable that.
Some form of aggregator type business, or aggregator businesses.
Yeah. How do you do that? We haven't got to that point. So that's going to be a major challenge, I think, in terms of particularly Europe.
Brilliant. Okay, well, that brings us to the end, so thank you very much. I'd like to thank Ian and Bob and Debbie. We can sign off. Thank you very much.